When Arsenal took on Newcastle at St James's Park last season, it felt like the moment where Arsenal fans felt the world was against them after that decision that happened on the goal line. A year later, they think the world's against them again for many things that have been happening. This is now an interesting game because I think at that point, St James's Park had a feeling. People were scared to go there. Newcastle were up for it because that Kai Havertz tackle, if you remember, on that far side. Arsenal seem a bit smarter. They don't feel like they're going to get lured into those sort of things again. Firstly, do you think St James's still could have an impact?
As a Chelsea fan who watched my side there midweek in the Carabao Cup, we lost, right? So, and it's a difficult place to go to. We saw City there a couple of weeks ago, only manage a draw. And so they do make it difficult for sides who travel to the northeast, and London or North London to the northeast is not a fun journey, depending on how Arsenal get up there. So it is always difficult. And this is a Newcastle team. Let's not forget they still do have quality. Isak, despite his struggles recently, is still a quality player. I was about to list through them. Their midfield is good to an extent. I like the profile of Joe Linton. Tonali in the recent weeks has actually been very good, and Bruno Guimaraes is a great player on this day. And so it won't be easy for Arsenal. It won't be plain sailing. I think it's all predicated on how Arsenal approach this game. I feel like there's been some criticism for Arsenal in terms of being a bit too defensive and a bit too pragmatic and not taking the game and not being on the front foot. But I can understand that, especially when they've been missing some of their key integral players, especially against Liverpool, where they didn't have Saliba, they didn't have Odegaard, and they had injuries throughout that game. We'll see how fit they are. We'll see how depleted the squad is. But I expect Arsenal to go into this game and really assert themselves. That's what I want to see. I don't feel like you can. There's different ways to skin the cat. There's different ways to win league titles. But I want to see Arsenal on the front foot and playing some of the football that we saw last year that made a lot of people believers and thought they could actually topple Man City.
With what you just said there about Arsenal playing pragmatic, I feel like there's certain stadiums you don't want to go to and invite pressure. And St James is probably one of those places where if you sit in and you encourage Newcastle to try and play through you, often Newcastle don't even play through you. They'll just start throwing the ball into areas where you don't want to be. Tackles will be flying in, and it can become really tricky to play there. Obviously, they haven't been great at home. The Chelsea win might rally them, but equally, we haven't really seen them ever pick up momentum this season and carry it forward. Arsenal beat Preston. Arsenal should have Gabriel back, potentially back, alongside Saliba, White and Timber. They would now have that back four that they want in front of Raya. And I just wonder, with Newcastle lacking goals, how do you get through this Arsenal team? Because even Liverpool had problems doing that, to be fair.
It's tough. They're so defensively solid, and that's their foundation. That's their hallmark. And so it is hard. It's hard unless you've got those top quality players that only need like half a chance to score a goal. That's how you're going to beat Arsenal. I don't see a path to victory for Newcastle. I know we're not making our predictions just yet, but it's an Arsenal team that are just well drilled, and I feel like, despite the fact they didn't get the win against Liverpool, they did show me something in terms of that resilience. Their backs were up against the wall. A lot of people were, like, especially me, I didn't have them down as winning that game. I thought there would be too many injuries, too many missing players, and it'd be a chance for Liverpool to really capitalise on the depleted Arsenal squad. But it shows some resiliency. They didn't lose that game. And despite the fact they've had probably the toughest run in out of all the top sides in the Premier League, they are still within touching distance of the top teams. And so I expect them to carry that forward. I expect Kai Havertz to have a huge impact on this game. And don't trust Newcastle centre-backs. I think Dan Burns is a good player in his own right. Fabian Schär is a good player in his own right. But in terms of as a collective, I think they can be got at. And I saw that in parts in the Chelsea game midweek. I definitely saw that in the Chelsea game on the weekend when Chelsea beat them at Stamford Bridge. And so Arsenal just need to do what they do, assert themselves and be on the front foot. And there's no reason why they can't go to St James's Park and do what Man City didn't do and pick up 3 points.
What's interesting is when Arsenal played Liverpool for 40 minutes, that's the Arsenal that I personally want to see, even as a rival fan. That, for me, is the version of them that can win the league, where they go and impose themselves on the game. I wonder if Newcastle, in their current state, because if you remember Newcastle, the season they got Champions League football, you felt you couldn't score against them because they were so resolute, they were so dogged. Now I feel like teams can pass through them. They're a bit slow to get into wide areas. They're a bit slow in central areas. They get beaten in the air frequently, and Kai Havertz obviously will be very important for Arsenal in that regard. And I think those late runs into the box they struggle with as well, which that's probably where Arsenal are lacking something in midfield. Trossard could maybe play as well.
You know who? I want to see Ethan Nwaneri play extensive minutes for Arsenal in the league. We saw him in the Cup. He scored a great goal for them in the Cup against Preston. He scored 3 goals in 2 League Cup games. He's got a couple against Bolton as well. But he's a player that has got that quality. Do you know when you're just like, if you're good enough, you're old enough, or you're old enough, you're good enough, one of the two.
Around, yeah.
But I do think he's got something.
Is this the game to experiment?
Arsenal complained that they've got a lack of creativity because Odegaard's missing. He might be back for this game. But I think Ethan Nwaneri fills that void. And I've seen Arteta do it before. I saw Arteta throw in the Bukayo Saka, who wasn't necessarily ready, or Emil Smith Rowe that wasn't ready, but needs must. Obviously, they're challenging for different things. The stakes are a lot higher right now. But I would like to see Ethan Nwaneri play extensive minutes, whether it's from the start or whether it's off the bench. I want to see him play because every time I've seen him play, whether it's in the league or in the cup, he showed me that he's good enough for this level.
What I like, as much as I want to see the kid again, because the way he played against Preston, and like you said, there's certain players you watch and you go, they feel like they can do things at the highest level. I look at this and I'm going, I hate this, but is it a must-win for Arsenal? Because of pressure. The pressure would build. Because now the theory against Liverpool was they played really well. Liverpool stole a draw. But stealing a draw for Arsenal felt like a compliment to Arsenal. They had the moral victory. If Arsenal failed to beat Newcastle, suddenly that steal from Liverpool feels like Liverpool robbed to Arsenal.
100%. You're so right there. That's a good point because they lost against Bournemouth. Then it would have been a draw against Liverpool. And if they don't win this game, it's 3 games without winning the Premier League. We know how good Man City are. They've not even hit their stride yet, and they're still unbeaten in the league. You can't afford to fall too far behind. And I've mentioned that it's still early in the season. But if Arsenal go on a 3-game winless run in October or heading into November, then they will start to maybe question themselves. So I get what you're saying. The stakes are maybe too high to start Ethan Nwaneri from the beginning. But he's a player that has shown me that he's got the quality to do things in this Arsenal side. Arsenal can also, by the way, take advantage of Nick Pope. Nick Pope, I've seen him for the last 2 games to Newcastle. He's not at the level that he was before that injury. In terms of what Arsenal do from set pieces, crossing it and putting it right on the keeper's head, do that 3 or 4 times, you'll get some joy because he is lacking something, whether it's the confidence, whether it's just the ability to left him. I don't know what it is, but he is lacking. So pop shots from outside the box, crosses into the box, Arsenal will get some joy.
And that's everything Arsenal want to do is just throw the ball into the box. If Newcastle sit back, I can see Barnes and Gordon maybe having some joy, but their forwards are so badly out of form that whatever they do or whatever they throw at Arsenal, they'll have to be on it because also their shot on target percentage is only 28.8%. It's the second worst in the league. So even when they get into the final third, they don't really take their chances. Score predictions at St. James's. I can't remember the kickoff time, but I'm sure you know it because
12:30 kickoff. Spooky things happen, but Arsenal aren't Liverpool, and Arteta's not Jurgen Klopp. He's not going to be crying about the fact they have to kick off early on a Saturday. And I feel like Arsenal will get the result against Newcastle. They win this one 2-0.
Interesting jibe at Klopp and Liverpool for no reason whatsoever, but all right. I want to say Newcastle can get something here, but I've not seen anything this season that convinces me. I wasn't convinced by the midweek performance. I thought Chelsea were just poor. I think Arsenal win this 1-0, but I think it's going to be one of those Arteta games where you're not entertained. 12:30, half-time, you switch it off, unlike Liverpool games. But I think Arsenal win 1-0.